Michael Ray here with Patient Care Marketing Pros. I'm going to talk to you guys today about on-site SEO. So SEO is made up of a ton of different things, but one of the pieces that in general SEO people will agree to that doing proper on-page, on-site SEO is important. So I'm going to be talking a little technical today. So I have my screen shared and we're going to go through it. A couple of things you should note about this is we're a WordPress shop, so I'm only going to be showing you WordPress technical SEO on-site page stuff. So if you're using Webflow, Wix, Weebly, things like that, this is the concept will apply, but the actual step-by-step will not. So I want you to keep that in mind as you go through this. So if you don't have a WordPress and you're watching this, the pages won't line up in terms of like the screens and so forth. But let's talk about on-page SEO. So at the end of the day, the way Google reads a site is very technical. It reads the code and it reads in a certain way. You want to make sure it reads well. Well, over the years, technical SEO has been easier in the sense of, just like any technology, at first it seems complicated and you have to have lots of experts doing that and it takes a long time to learn it. And it gets easier and easier and easier. So the on-page SEO piece, while it is important and it needs to be done, the difficulty of doing it is not super high, but the impact does matter. So I'm going to go through one right now. You've seen us mention Aspen Medical Center. We use them quite a bit because they do well. They're a great client. They don't mind us using to showcase some of their stuff. But at the end of the day, there's a couple of things that go on here when it comes to on-page SEO. First, out of the box is WordPress by default doesn't have any SEO tools built in. It will just show things to Google in the most natural way, and so you can't manipulate things as much. So we always recommend getting an SEO tool to help do that. Now, there are tons of SEO tools out there. We're on our third version of an SEO tool, trying to figure out which one's the best, and we may switch it again at some point too. At the end of the day, an SEO tool at its core should have the ability to change meta descriptions and titles and things like that, add sitemaps. I'm going to show you that too, just to kind of show you what that looks like. Pretty basic. Even the free ones do all that. The paid ones add additional functionality. AI is a big piece of that now for sure. So either way, I look at this that as long as you're getting an SEO tool that has good reviews, it's a good starting point. Now, the ones that we've used and are currently using, so we currently use Rank Math. Rank Math came around 3 or 4 years ago, made a big impact. It was one of the first to integrate some AI information, which was somewhat helpful. It's not perfect. It's a little buggy. Before that, we had Smart Crawl. Smart Crawl is a WordPress WPMU dev product. It's pretty good. We still use Smart Crawl for one very specific thing, and it works. So we love that. And then the most common one you'll ever hear in the WordPress space is Yoast. Yoast has been around forever. I think it's one of the first SEO plugins to ever populate in the WordPress world, and it works. It does. I think from an individual use, Yoast makes total sense. From an agency use, in terms of like across lots of accounts and the costs and so forth, Yoast doesn't make as much sense. So I've used a lot of them. At the end of the day, they're all kind of similar. One of the warnings that they will give you, and it's mostly true, you don't really want two SEO plugins operating at the same time. Smart Crawl is the exempt from that, because on Smart Crawl, there's a piece that we like, and it even says you can use this one piece of functionality and it won't affect the rest of your SEO plugins. So we actually do that. But for the most part, if you're just trying this out, just run one SEO plugin at a time. Don't try to turn on one experiment and turn on the next one experiment, and then you have like 5 of them turned on. They're going to conflict. And what I mean by conflict, you won't know which one Google's going to read, because if you have different descriptions in each one of those, you're not really sure which one Google is actually going to load. So save yourself a headache. Don't do that, especially when it comes to sitemaps. You don't need like repetitive sitemaps are all over the place. Once again, Google is smart, but it can be easily confused. And so you don't want to confuse it by any stretch. So let's go through this. So step number 1 is installing a plugin, an SEO plugin. We have Rank Math, which I'm just going to show you real quick what that even looks like. So one, if you ever installed a plugin before, you go to plugins and let it load for a second. And then you want to go to add new. And then you're going to do a search. And then you're going to install. And so it's very straightforward, very easy. Rank Math has a free version and a paid version, just like almost any SEO plugin. So when you're in Rank Math, just like any plugin, they always like to walk you through a step-by-step wizard to do different things. But We already done that here, so I'm not going to show that. But a couple of things to note in the settings and so forth is like, so generally speaking, like the default settings aren't bad. Like you're not having to do a bunch of changes and so forth. But you need to make sure that things are recognized and like just some basic stuff is inserted. Some of the stuff we set up at the wizard, but I just want to make sure you note that. When it comes to homepage, so nowadays in the WordPress world, you set your homepage in your settings, and then you go to the actual homepage to make the edits on the SEO metadata. All right. Some other things too, like there's some little details you can add. The nice thing, these are all your defaults, which are good, which basically means if you don't have, if you're not sure about something, this will default it, but so it automatically gives you some advantages out of the gate. But then you can go in and customize it. So next we're going to do is actually go in and customize stuff. So I'm going to go edit pages. I'm going to go edit the home page. And so we're on the home page right here. Notice that inside this screen that things have changed, right? So Smart Crawl, we're using that for a very specific reason. So it doesn't do the meta stuff. It does something very specific. So we can ignore that and go to Rank Math. So a lot of these tools have scores. And so you can see right here, we have 100 out of 100 SEO score. Now, the score is actually based on your focus keyword. Now, the focus keyword is the keywords that you want to focus on, which makes sense, absolutely. Notice here, too, it says activate your account. It's been activated multiple times. This is one of those bugs I've talked about in Rank Math. It just likes to act like it's not activated, but it definitely is because that wouldn't work. Anyway, little things, right? All right, so a couple of things to note here. Notice that if you put in the right focus keyword, so if I put in this focus keyword of digital marketing agency, that score will go from 100 to almost 0 because that description has nothing to do with it. And so you want to focus on like this keyword, like I'm an urgent care. I want to focus on the keyword urgent care. If I want to focus on the name of the company, I want to focus on the city that I'm in and so forth. So those are things you want to look at. Now, if you're single location, it's very straightforward. Essentially you're adding a city qualifier to your keyword, and that's about it. Now, if you're multi-location, there's some limitations. So there are 2 locations, so we have enough space to say Santa Fe and Española, so which means that we can insert that properly, and it works. Like Google recognizes that and sees that, and then we have additional pages beyond that for each of those locations. But from a homepage standpoint, we can do that. Now, if you're like 30, 40, 50, basically more than 2 or 3 locations, you want to focus more on the central areas, or even so much like let's say I'm in Birmingham. Let's say I have 10 locations in Birmingham and like a couple just north of Birmingham. I would say, premier urgent care centers located in the different markets. So you can say like the Birmingham and Huntsville market, even though there may be different cities involved. But if you're multi-state, you can just say, it could be across these states and so forth. Because at that point, once you're like multi-state or just very diverse locations, your homepage meta isn't as effective because Google's going to start looking toward all your location pages. And your location pages are like individual home pages in terms of the content and what it does. So kind of keep that in mind. But we're going to go into mindset right now that you're 1 or 2 locations. I'm going to show you some stuff. So going here to edit snippet. Generally speaking, now when it comes to the layout of all this, so you have the scoring piece right here. So those are your characters and so forth, and you want to maximize as much as you can. It's not going to be perfect. Don't expect it to be perfect. But here we go. So we have the name of the company dash the keyword in the city. Pretty straightforward, right? You can variate that a little bit, but ultimately what you're looking for, there's a name. Because this is a good example how it shows in Google. So when somebody does a search and Aspen Medical Center pops up, this is what they see. So you want to make sure it makes sense to the human, not so much even to a robot in Google or to the computer, but to a human. Am I in the right spot or not? So you want to use the right proper name. You don't want to just say urgent care, Santa Fe urgent care. You're like, I don't know who that is. Is that the name of the urgent care? So name first, actual name of company dash your keyword in your city. Pretty straightforward. Like I said, you can adjust that a little bit, but ultimately you want that name first and then keyword and cities later. But you only have 60 characters, so you got to be very conscious of what you're doing there. So I just want to point that out. Next, description wise, so this is where it gets up to 160. So you can see right here, like there's a little bit of space left. If you want to maximize it, you don't have to maximize it, but it does make a difference. Like if you can get as close as you can for it to make sense, don't just fill it up with words type of thing. Because once again, Google likes it because it's staying within the parameters. The human likes it because it's reading the right thing. So You want to focus on the keywords, you want to focus on the city, you want to focus on your company name, and any service that's maybe related to your keyword to help fill that in properly. It's very straightforward, very easy. Now, generate with AI. Don't have that turned on with this. Don't need it. Generate the AI on like rank math it can be pretty good, and sometimes it can be really off, just like any AI these days. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, so that's that piece there. Next, you're going to look at some other things here. So the focus keyword stuff, like your base thing, we have the word urgent care in our actual copy of our homepage, which is great. And then we have almost 1,500 words, which is great. So the general rule of thumb is you want to be pushing 1,200 words plus these days, which is a lot. Don't get us wrong. But it's important that you have that. Does it magically fix everything? No, not necessarily. But if you're going from like 100 words and you get to 1,000, I can almost guarantee that you're going to have an increase in rankings, assuming the content's good content and not just repeating itself over and over and over and over again. So just keep that in mind. Readability and stuff like that. So basically saying, does it make sense? Is it not garbage, essentially? And you just kind of go through that process. So that's how you do the most basic on page SEO meta stuff. You want to do this for every single, I would say it's not every single page of your site, because you have a ton of pages, it becomes taxing. But you can see right here, like we don't have a perfect score on this page. It's a careers page. While we did define it, it's not our focus, right? Like nobody really cares to rank for a careers page if you're in urgent care. It's nice and everything, but that's not the point. Unless there's just a high focus there, but generally speaking, no. So the other side is that you want to have, you do this for every keyword. Every page, and based on the keywords for that page. Now, one of the things to note here, so in the world of WordPress, you don't always get these nice little fields to show up. This is a great way to see that I do everything I need to. But if you go to screen options, you can make sure this is all checked. So like if I decheck that, notice it goes away. Same with description. So it's from a pure management standpoint, it makes it a whole lot easier to see what's going on. So you can do that, hit apply, and you're good to go. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Like that's a simple way of looking at stuff. And like I said, like at the end of the day, it applies some common sense to the whole thing. Where if I'm on a location page, and let's say like Santa Fe, and I want to talk about urgent care, well, make sure it focuses around Santa Fe, New Mexico, urgent care. It's very straightforward and it's very simple. Like I said, the on-page SEO stuff, like it's agreed upon that we all should do it. And it's not hard, as I just showed you. It's very simple. It does take time. Like it's not like complicated. It's just time consuming, especially if you have a lot of pages that need it. So I want to show that. Another thing to show too. So some of the stuff that's important that a default SEO plugin will do fantastic on is a sitemap. So a sitemap is essentially like a roadmap for Google and other search engines to look at. So obviously Rank Math has one. Most of your SEO plugins are going to have one. It's pretty rare that they don't these days because it's very straightforward. It's kind of up in the air if the natural HTML sitemap has just as much impact as the true XML one. So like there are possibilities that you could do either one and it can insert and so forth. But we know at the end of the day, this sitemap is super important because I've watched it. Because I'll show you, or I'll explain in a second the importance why. But I've watched sitemaps that get disabled. Like I've seen where like Rank Math is updated and then turned itself off. We didn't notice, right? Because it's like something that you just don't think about because you set up everything up so quickly at the beginning. And then we noticed the rankings started going down. So we go through our checks and the sitemap's disabled. Hang on, re-enable sitemap, and we see the rankings return. So at the end of the day, sitemaps are one of those things that it definitely makes an impact. We've seen it time and time again, the difference between having a sitemap on, having a sitemap off, and it's pretty significant. And partly because sitemaps are one of the only things that you can fully submit to Google, to their Google Search Console. So if you do a search for Google Search Console and you add your website to it, which is through like a domain verification, there's a place where you can upload your sitemap, and it will auto update itself based on when changes happen. Well, we know that like if you do that, that's an automatic win for you, because if you haven't done that, you're not instructing Google to exactly what you're wanting them to find. So, but let's just show you what a sitemap looks like. So, in this scenario, this is Rank. It even says right here, Rank Math SEO plugin. So most sitemaps have a familiar look to them. This is one way that Rank Math does it. SmartCrawl does it a different way. Yoast does it a different way, but they're all very similar. And they break it out based on, in the world of WordPress, post types essentially, and like different opportunities. So one of the things you'll see here is, you have posts, pages, articles is something that we do, and then categories and author. Well, the most important ones at the end of the day are pages. Generally speaking, if you submit this sitemap, it will look for these, but we like to do it individually. I find that it seems to help a little bit. But anyway, so we do individually. So here we go to pages. Notice all the pages here, right? So here it tells you there's 26 pages on the site, shows last modified and things like that. So you can see the changes have been made not too long ago for some of these things. And if I come over here and I go to post, similar mindset, like we just had a post go out 3 days ago. So that's great. So that's awesome to see that it's working. But this is telling Google every single time something goes up, it hits their search console. So, oh, there's some new content to go look at. And as we have 192 of those, so content does matter. Articles is another example, so almost 600 of those, and that's some that haven't gone out in a minute, but at the same time needs just an adjustment. So like we didn't need it necessary for that piece, and so we're trying different things, but I probably have an idea why. Anyway, and you can see going through all this, like there's different things, but at the end of the day, like these sitemaps matter and they need to update regularly. So just that encouragement of, I can even see there it last modified just a few minutes ago, so it just didn't show it quite yet. Anyway, all that being said, this is something that's important. It is an on-page piece because it's technical and it's important. So the other pieces to look at finally, just a couple of things from a layout perspective. So the final piece is going to the main site, is that you want to make sure your H1s and your H2s are lined up pretty well. So and the easiest way to do that is when you go through and edit your site, is this an H1? Is it the major title? And then these are your subtitles, more subtitles, and you can go all the way down to like an H5, H6. So the reason why it does that, Google likes to read those headings in terms of hierarchical. So they're like, if it's an H1, it must be really important. If it's an H2, it's pretty important, and back and forth, right? But generally speaking, you only have one H1, and then the rest follow accordingly. You may have one H1 and a whole bunch of H2s. You may have one H1 and H2, a bunch of H3s and H2 again. But the H1 is like the most important indicator. Now, the SEO tools help with that. It helps define that for you a little bit. But at the end of the day, like that's the general flow of that. And once again, this information, like it sounds like a lot, but it's really not. It's just a nice little rhythm. It's things that you can knock out relatively quick, but you have to be focused on to make sure you're following the right path. And one of the biggest things that we'll tell people too is like you need to make sure you understand the keywords that you do want to target, because you could do this for all your pages, but not a single page has a keyword that's most impactful to you. Because ROI keywords, so keywords that really actually bring customers to your table or patients to your table, those are the most important ones. You want to make sure you focus on that as much as you can. So anyway, I just want to walk through all that. So if I was going to sum all this up for you, so at the end of the day, this is based on WordPress, you need an SEO plugin. Once you have that plugin active and working, don't install other ones. It makes conflicts. Then you want to go to each individual page and score it out. So going back to the first one, going to the start a homepage, right? So you want to start at the very beginning. So when you go into one of these, you want to make sure you're scoring properly. A perfect 100 in an SEO plugin doesn't actually mean it's absolutely perfect. It just means that you're doing the right things. Focus on the name and the city and the keyword, which is typically your service, overarching service. And then you approach that to the rest of them. And then after that, you go look at sitemaps, submit those search consoles, and then you just make sure you're updating your content regularly. But in a nutshell, that will quickly get you in the right path to doing proper on-site SEO, and then allows you to do other things, because that's kind of a foundational item. I hope this was helpful. If you got any questions, just let us know. Hello@PitchCodeMarketing.